Hi, welcome to Minutes with Mickey, a time for us to wonder and think through about the story of Elijah and the widow that we find in 1 Kings chapter 17. I'm going to suggest that as we look at this story that we need a little bit more of taking a peek at the end of chapter 15 and all of chapter 16. For what is happening in the nation of Israel, which we know is the northern kingdom, is we see God's hand of judgment on them from within themselves, which is very fascinating. Jeroboam had been king, and then what we have in chapter 17, we are introduced to Ahab and Jezebel. Well, interestingly enough, 5 other kings have been in play since Jeroboam's reign was over. And of these kings, we no longer have the Jeroboam bloodline. We end up with one king after the other. And it says in the text that they did more evil than the king before them. And yet it states that each one of these kings walked in the ways of Jeroboam. Interesting that even though they were more evil, it was considered the way of Jeroboam. What a horrible legacy. So what we have is we have Nadab, we have Baasha, and he ruled for 24 years. And he was the one who got rid of the entire Jeroboam family, so no longer was there the bloodline there. Then we have Elah, who is the son of Baasha. He didn't rule for very long. He was a drunk. Zimri, and he killed all of Baasha's line. And then the nation of Israel itself sort of ended up with 2 camps, one for Tibni and one for Omri. And Omri was the one that won out over that. And he got rid of everything else. And it says that he ruled for 12 years and did more evil than before. And yet it still says he walked in the ways of Jeroboam. Ahab is the son of Omri. Ahab marries Jezebel. And Jezebel comes from the Phoenician area. And if you take a look at a map, and I'm going to suggest that you do, look at where the nations of Israel are in the northern kingdom, and then where Phoenicia area is. And we know that it says here that Ahab did even more evil than all the kings before him. Interestingly enough, each of the kings that wiped out the previous kings' families and wiped out that lineage, it says that it was done as God had predicted. God used evil people to mete out his justice. God is always surprising us with how his will gets done. And we see this again in Elijah. Elijah is a Tishbite from Gilead, which is a place that you need to look at on your map, find out where that area is. He is a prophet who comes from Israel. So even after all these years of evil being beget after evil, still God has a prophet that rises up within that, in that area. He speaks against Ahab, and you can understand from the story all about the fact that he says there will be no rain and that Baal is considered the god of rain. So it's a very interesting twist. But Elijah has to run away. Where does he go? He is told to go to this place, Zarephath, where there is a widow that's going to take care of him. Look at where this place is. It's the same place that Jezebel had come from. So now we have a woman who is a Gentile woman who comes from the same place that Jezebel, who is so evil, comes from, who is a follower of God, who is going to be someone who takes care of a prophet. Elijah gives her an ongoing miracle. Interestingly enough, in this ongoing miracle, Elijah takes care of her food needs. He leaves and is gone for a while doing other things. And in that ongoing miracle, she somehow forgets or takes it for granted because this ongoing miracle lasts the entire time that there is no rain, which we know is a long time. And yet, when her son dies, she is immediately ready to blame God and blame Elijah because of the relationship that they had as she took care of him. It makes me wonder about how many times have we had ongoing sort of daily miracles in our life that we don't give God glory for and don't give him honor for. And that when something big happens, then we're ready to blame God or to seek distancing ourselves from God, instead of recognizing that the next miracle might come. And here we have God showing grace to a Phoenician woman, a Gentile. Yet he's been giving her grace all the way along, and then he gives her an extra measure of grace in healing her son. So in this story, take a look at where it's plotted out on the map. Take a look at the way God uses evil people to mete out his justice, and also the way God uses what would be potentially what people would think of as evil, a raven, a Gentile woman, and see how God uses them to take care of God's people. And then think to yourself, when is it that I have been not paying attention to the daily miracles of my life? And how quick am I to blame God for the bigger things that happen? And yet God's grace is always greater. I hope you wonder about these things. Have a great week.